everybody, we need a Hillsborough law now. And on that note, I'm absolutely delighted to formally open the meeting and introduce my fellow parliamentarian and good friend Maria Eagle, the Member of Parliament for Liverpool, Garston and Elwood, to update on the progress of our Public Advocate Bill. Thank you, and over to you, Maria.
Thanks, Ian, and it's good to see everybody again. And sorry you can't meet in person, but I think we'd have all been stuck on trains if we'd been trying to get down to London today. I've been introducing, along with Michael Wills in the Lords, a Public Advocate Bill since 2016. It's a bill that we drew up following on from doing some work with Hillsborough families. And it's an essential piece of legislation because it requires those caught up in public disasters, it enables them, survivors and families, to have a say in whether or not they get the public advocate involved once they're appointed. The public advocate isn't a lawyer in the normal sense of the word who would represent the families in cases, in inquests, in inquiries, in court cases, civil or criminal. It's somebody who's there to look after their interests and represent them at an early stage, to give them the agency to be able to demand that there's some accountability earlier. It's based on the lessons of the Hillsborough Independent Panel, and it's based on the work that they did. But of course, they were only able to produce their findings 23 years after the events of Hillsborough, and it was a fantastic piece of work. But it was lucky that the panel got set up, and it was lucky that they did such a brilliant job because they were such brilliant people. And this doesn't always happen, and so we want to set up an advocate who's always there. If families caught up in disasters want it, can get them involved using the principles of freedom of information and transparency to torpedo the kind of cover-ups that we all know happen in these disasters and the kind of defensiveness from a very early stage. Imagine if the work that the Hillsborough Independent Panel did had been done a year or two into the process instead of only being able to produce its conclusions 23 years after the event. It would have saved a lot of heartache, pain. It would have stopped the cover-ups, and it would have kept all the proceedings on the straight and narrow. And it's essential reform. I introduced into the Commons as soon as the new session started. Didn't come up in the private members bill ballot. That Michael Wills in the Lords did come up in the private members bill ballot. So he's introduced the Public Advocate Bill into the Lords, and he's got a second reading sometime in November. I introduced it as a presentation bill, but because the bill's already written, I was able to put it in for the first private members bill Friday, which was actually last Friday. We got 20 minutes at the end of the government allowing 4 of their handout bills through, and we got 20 minutes. They would not allow it through its second reading into committee. And I'm surprised that they wouldn't allow that when the bill's written. Any concerns they would have about it, they can sort out in committee. But because they don't control it, they don't seem to want to allow it to make any progress. The minister talked it out. He didn't get a whip to shout object. He didn't get one of those backbenchers that they sometimes get to filibuster to do that. He talked it out himself. So that's pretty clearly an indication that they don't like the Public Advocate Bill, no matter the warm words. Well, it's back on the 9th of September. Meanwhile, I'm still trying to get meetings with ministers to try and find out what their objections are, deal with the objections, still demanding that they reply to Bishop James's excellent report from now 5 years ago and respond to the consultation that Theresa May's government established into setting up a public advocate. The way in which their consultation was set up in 2017, it wouldn't be quite the same kind of thing that I'm proposing in my bill in the Commons and that Michael Wills is proposing in his bill in the Lords, but it's of a similar kind, and they clearly have had some view that it would be a useful thing to do. And we know that Theresa May herself said to Boris Johnson in the Queen's speech debate that she thought independent public advocate proposal was missing from the government.
1 minute, Maria.
Sorry.
1 minute.
Okay, thanks. I don't need any more than that. I'm not going to talk my own bill out. I'll leave that to the minister. The thing is, we're back in September. We'll keep campaigning. It's an essential part of the Hillsborough Law now reforms. And we're making steady progress and putting pressure on them. And that's all we can do from opposition. But we're keeping at it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Maria, for that update. Really welcome. Thanks for everything that you've done. Now it's a great pleasure